Hello, my friends, and happy Thursday. So it's been a beautiful day, a bit cold here in Wisconsin, but again, we have all the pretty beads to play with today, all the sparkle, and we're just going to make our own beautiful day. So today we are going to make a necklace and a bracelet, and this is actually a great way to hone your loop making skills, and at the same time, it's also about making a little bit of chain with wire and crystals. And yes, we're still using Swarovski, which are getting to be more rare by the minute. But it's also about connecting to leather. And sometimes I use a special little finding that connects our leather to whatever the next element is. But today we're actually doing it in this very simple, very boho style, which we can kind of change depending on our own personal style. We can make it a longer wrap, we can make it a shorter wrap, and I have 3 different colorways for you. But wait, there's more. Not only are we going to be making a necklace, we're also going to make a bracelet. And this is a bracelet very much in the same style. But of course, whenever we make a bracelet as opposed to a necklace, there's going to be something changed. In this case, and of course, as we make the 2 pieces, I will go over all of the components needed and just exactly how we're going to go about sizing.
Fonda says, good evening, everyone. Happy Thursday.
Hi, Fonda, and good evening, and happy Thursday to you, my friend.
Trudy says, Happy New Year, everyone.
Hi, Trudy. Thank you so much, and Happy New Year. That's right, you guys. This is the first time in the new year that we're going to be spending a little time, and thank you for reminding me. So happy New Year to everyone, and I wish you all a beautiful, happy, healthy, and joyous New Year.
Patricia says, good evening, everyone.
Hi, Patricia. Good evening, and Happy New Year.
Allie says, so pretty. Love all 3 colors.
Thank you so much, Ellie. So the pinks, the shades of pink, were my original colorway, and then you guys said, let's make some icy blue. So I don't remember who suggested it, but whoever did, thank you so much for the suggestion, because I really do love how the icy blue came out. And I actually did call it icy blue. And I have an icy blue necklace, I have an icy blue bracelet, so whoever it was, big thanks. And then of course I threw in some purples, because you cannot ever go wrong with a little purple, right?
Allie says, so pretty. Love all 3 colors.
Thank you so much, Ellie.
Connie says, good evening, everyone. Happy New Year to all.
Hi, Connie, and good evening to you, my friend. Happy New Year.
Carmen says, good evening, all.
Hi, Carmen. I hope New Year is treating all of you well. We're only a few days into it, but so far so good. You know, for me, it's been good. So if you want to share how you celebrated the new year and what you've been doing in the new year, I would love to hear from you.
Carmen, Sharon says, hi, all.
Hi, Sharon, and thanks for joining us.
Connie says, beautiful.
Thank you so much, Connie.
And I've already forgotten if I read this, so we'll read it again. Patricia says, good evening, everyone.
Hi, Patricia, again, and good evening. You know what? It's twice as nice to hear from you. So, I believe, ladies, we are ready to get started. So again, lots of loops in both of these projects. And I am, I'm really kind of a loop person. Maybe I'm a loopy person occasionally. And I love making loops. And so today we're going to go over a really good way to make our loops, especially when we're looking for loops that are very similar in size and shape. And also, of course, we'll talk about how to attach wire to just about anything in a very simple way.
Bobby says hi all.
Hi, Bobby, and thanks for joining us. All right, ladies, so I am going to move my bracelets and necklaces for now, all but one. I'll leave one on the table so that we can remember what it is that we're making, and we are just going to get started. Okay, ladies, so once you get your bracelet kits, which of course are at this point available through the Etsy shop, so everything is listed in the Etsy shop, and so once you get your kits, you will find a fun little menagerie of beads. And I will actually, let me point out that in every one of the kits, 2 of the beads are not like the others. They're a little larger, they're a little different in shape. And so, you know what, let me just show you the other 2 necklaces so that you can see, just for fun. I actually really varied the beads that my end beads or my frame beads. I guess I think of them as my frame beads because they kind of frame the whole piece. So I have 2 little olive beads on the lilac one, the shades of lilacs, and the icy blue has this icy little, it's not a graphic bead. I actually forgot, maybe, no, not Cosmos bead. Maybe it is a Cosmos bead. So, so the point is, find the 2 beads that are not like the others, and we're just going to set them aside for now. And what that leaves us, or actually what that leaves us with, rather, is 15 beads in total, and it's actually 3 beads of each color. So we're going to take our 15 beads and we're just going to play with them and lay them out in some type of way that makes us happy. So I like to start with the darkest ones, but you might feel differently. You might start with the lighter ones. However you do it, it doesn't matter. And there's really no symmetry here. We are just going to lay them out so that it's sort of pleasing to the eye. And then we're going to get started. But, sometimes I like to lay out my beads and sometimes I don't bother just because, I do it kind of organically.
Katie says happy Thursday all.
Hi, Katie. Thanks for joining us and happy Thursday.
Karen says good evening, and I forgot to say hello to everyone.
Hi, Karen. Well, you just did. You said hello, and hello to you, my friend. And so we're just laying out our beads in whatever order makes us happy. I think this is making me happy. Maybe I'll swap something out here. And so I do like to do this before I get started. I also think about the color of the beads at the ends, and I don't really like the same color beads next to one another, which is actually why I'm really taking my time in deciding what goes next to what.
Ellen says hi, Irina and everyone.
Hi, Ellen, and thanks for joining us. Okay, guys. So all my 15 beads are laid out and I am ready to get started. So we're going to be working with 22 gauge wire, and this is half hard wire, which means that it is beadsmith wire. I sometimes talk about the wire that I use, and it's especially when you work with base metal, it's very, very helpful to get to know the brands. And the two brands that I'm a big fan of for this kind of thing is Beadsmith and Artistic. So when I want something that's half hard, I use Beadsmith, and for dead soft wire, I use Artistic. And those, of course, are terms that are specific to wire. Dead soft means that it has not been work hardened, and so it doesn't have a little spring like this, but you can see how this just springs right back. And so this is half hard, which is what we want to work with as we make our loops. So I'm going to make a 90-degree angle so that I can start making the loops.
Yolanda says, hello, I made it, and Happy New Year.
Hi, Yolanda. Happy New Year, and I'm glad you made it. Okay, guys, so we start with a 90-degree angle, as we always do when we're making loops. And I am going to start making my loop. And I'm working with my bail making pliers right now. And this is because I would like all my loops to be very similar in size and shape. So I am just wrapping or coiling the wire twice. And I'm going to cut this little wire end off and pinch it with my chain nose pliers. It's important to give it a little pinch so that it does not stick out and poke the wearer. So next, our bead goes on, and as we are about to make the second loop, I'm going to make a 90-degree angle again, but this time I'm leaving just a little bit of space, just enough space for 2 coils. So that's probably about 1.5 millimeters to 2 millimeters. So since I'm using the bail making pliers, I'm just going to mention that there are 2 different diameters to the nose of the bail making pliers. So I decided for this project to go with the slightly larger diameter, which gives me about a 3, maybe 3.5 millimeter loop. And of course, when we make the loop, once we have created that 90-degree angle, we're going to start out, I like to start out maybe about 5-6 millimeters out, and then you go up. This is actually a really good loop making video. So if you have a friend, a neighbor, somebody you know who wants to learn this, recommend this video if they want to start making jewelry. So I'm going to hold on to the loop again, and this time I'm just using the long end of my wire. Very simple to keep it nice and long. And I wrap right into that little space, making 2 coils. And now we're going to cut the wire off again and pinch it in. So at this point, I'm actually going to share a little tip, which I don't believe I've ever shared in these videos, but this is a fun little tip, because once we have laid out the order of our beads, we are going to want to remember which direction we're going in. So what I like to do is just use a different piece of wire or string, whatever you have. So I'm just using a little piece of wire, and I'm going to give it a little twist. And this is my marker. This tells me that this is my first bead. This is going to ensure that I don't get confused and start going on both sides, right? So I'm only going to be going in one direction, and this tells me which end I started with. So moving right along, I'm going to start on my, actually, you know what, I grabbed the wrong piece of wire. I want the slightly shorter one. And so I'm going to start making my second loop. And again, I made a 90-degree angle. I made the loop, and my end of the wire ends up at a 90-degree angle again. And so now we're going to connect just by connecting the still unwrapped loop right into the previously made loop. And again, I'm just going to hold on with my chain nose pliers and wrap just like this by hand. The closer your the end of your wire is to being a 90-degree angle, the easier it's going to be to create that tight little wrap. So you see that little tight wrap. And I know that most of you guys are just so good at making loops. But if you feel you need a little improvement, a little practice, this is a really good project for that. And me, you know, I've made millions of loops in my life, but I still enjoy making them. I love making wrapped loop components. In fact, I just realized I'm wearing a bracelet. One of my bracelets is made with wrapped loops. And this is just really easy and fun. And for me, making wrapped loops is kind of a little meditative. Okay, ladies, and we are going to start making our next loop. And don't worry, I'm not going to be making 15 wrap loop components right this moment. So I'm again going to make a 90-degree angle and start making that loop.
Bobby says cool idea, and Katie says cool tip.
Oh, thank you so much, ladies. Anything to make it easier, right? To keep track. Okay, so now we have reviewed the loops, and as per our custom, through the magic of Facebook Live, I have a little chain that's already connected, all but 2 beads, right? So I just made my 2 components that we're going to connect to the rest of our chain. And as you can see, I do have that little teal wire that helps me keep track just exactly which end I'm connecting to. So here is my little 2-component piece, right? And we are simply going to connect it to the rest of our chain. And once we have connected, we are going to give it a nice little double coil and done with this part of the project.
Fonda says, thank you for the great tip. That's a lot faster and easier than going back and forth on my phone to look at a picture I take.
Yes, Fonda, absolutely. Thank you so much. I mean, it's just like a very, very simple little tip. But, you know, I was like, wait a minute, I don't think I've ever shared this in a video. So today is the day, you know, new year, new tip.
Allison says, awesome, love this.
Oh, yay, thank you so much, Allison. Okay, guys, so here it is. We no longer need our little ands. So at this point, I'm just going to cut them off. And I only ended up with 2 ands because, of course, I, you know, pre-made most of it before, and I wanted to share the tip. Okay, so now we have this chain, and I believe you know what? I wish my little work surface were just a little longer. It's okay. We will just make do by turning it. How is that? So what I'm going to do is just lay out my handmade chain like this, nice and straight, and then also put my pre-made chain or commercially made chain right next to it. And the reason I want to do this is because as you saw, the necklace is a 2-strand necklace. This is how it hangs. And for this look, and maybe I'll model it a little later. So for this look, which I like the look where the bottom strand is roughly 1 inch longer than the top strand. So for this look, we're going to cut our chain a little shorter, right around 1 inch shorter. And the reason I left it a little longer is because if you prefer a slightly different look, that's okay. You can do your own thing. So in the meantime, I'm just going to measure 1 inch and cut the chain. So, and maybe someday this can be an earring, who knows? So save all your little chain snibbles because they are super useful. All right, so now we'll just turn this back. And so we're just going to set it aside for a couple of minutes while we do the next part. And the next part is going to be this little wrap. And this is a really fun and easy way to make a loop out of leather. And just for fun, I styled some of these a little differently. So some loops are smaller, some loops are larger, some of the wraps are longer. You can make a long wrap. You actually have 4 feet of 28 gauge wire. So this little wrap right here, this took about 2 feet of 28 gauge wire. So when you get your kit, first thing you do with your 28 gauge wire when you get to this point is just cut it in half, since we have 2 sides of our necklace. And so this is what I'm going to do. Oh, and also before we start wrapping, let's kind of ponder the length. Of course, when you wrap the first loop, you really don't have to do a whole lot of pondering.
Katie says, I love the word schnibble.
Oh, yay. Thank you so much, Katie. So this is what we're going to do. To make that first loop, we're just going to fold the leather over, and you can have a little fold over, you can have a longer fold over. I don't actually need as much leather as I have in front of me. What you're getting in your kit is 30 inches of leather, and the chances are you're probably going to shorten it a little bit. So my sample actually uses about 27 inches of leather. And again, you know, as I design samples, I usually do it with like a 5'4" type of person in mind, because I'm about 5'4" or maybe 5'3". I think my driver's license says 5'4", but it's actually 5'3". You know, we're all taller and skinnier on our driver's licenses. And so I'm starting to wrap from the top towards the loop, okay? So again, you can make it a longer wrap or a shorter wrap. For the purpose of the video, I'm not going to make it a super long one because it's just going to get a little boring to just sit and watch me coil wire. But so this is what I'm doing. I'm just coiling towards the loop, and as you can see, some coils are a little closer than other coils. I guess you can be really meticulous about this or not. And I am not being meticulous at all. And guess what? It's still going to work out quite nicely. So I'm just going toward the loop, and maybe I will stop right around this spot. And I'm just going to change direction. So I'm going to go back in the opposite direction
from the loop and towards the end of the wire. And as I go in the opposite direction, I am also going to fill all those little gaps. So you see how you can see the gaps. This is still just one set of coils, and I'm literally coiling right on top of the other coils, and sometimes the wire kind of lands in between. This is almost a variation on you know, when we make those kind of slightly messy wrapped loops, I call those organic wrapped loops. It's kind of a variation on that because you coil in one direction first and then you turn and coil in the opposite direction, and it just works out really nicely. So because this wire is so thin, it almost looks like a metallic thread, which I really like that look.
Katie said this is another good example of a potential mix and match a la Irina.
Yes, Katie, thank you so much. You know, it's been a little while since we've talked about mix and match. But I love mixing and matching different techniques, as well as, of course, the tops and bottoms of my various jewelry pieces. And if anybody is not familiar with what I'm talking about, please let me know and then I'll show you. So what I'm doing is I am simply coiling with one end of the wire around the other wire, and I'm just pushing it over so that it's close to where the two pieces of leather, or two sides of leather rather, meet. And after a couple of coils, you can just cut the excess wire off. And always we want to tuck in that little tail. And so I just tuck that in nicely so that it doesn't hurt anyone. And then we're just going to find a little spot for the other wire end. And we're going to do the same thing, just kind of push it in between a couple of the coils and finish it just by coiling around and then tuck in that end.
Allie says, this is great to see how consistently you wrap without getting the wire tangled.
Oh, thank you so much, Allie. You know, it's really not hard because in, you know, some of the projects that I do, the wire is quite long, but since the wire is really not that long, it's only 2 feet long, it's really not very difficult.
Sharon is wondering what gauge wire you are using to wrap.
Thank you so much, Sharon, for asking. It is 28 gauge wire, and it has to be dead soft so that it wraps really nicely. So now I don't really need all this leather anymore. I am just going to cut some of that off, leaving just a little end, maybe just like 2 millimeters past the coil. And don't worry, the coil is nice and snug, so it's definitely not going to pull apart. And I don't think I'm going to demo the other side because the other side is going to be exactly like this side. So in the meantime, this is a good time to connect all of our components. They're not very many. So we have our handmade chain. We have our, I don't know, what should we call this, rectangular chain. And then, of course, we have our wire loop. And we are going to use one of the bigger beads, or as you might remember, I refer to them as the framing beads because I feel like it just kind of frames the focal point of the necklace. And at the same time, we're going to use this as a connector. So since we're getting ready to make another wrapped loop yet, I made a 90-degree angle. I know it's not quite 90, it's past 90, but that's okay too. And I am using my bail making pliers to make a loop. So I always make like half a loop. and then keeping the pliers inside the loop, I just cross over with my fingers just like that. And so we have a loop that is about to be a wrap loop, but it's not wrapped just yet. So we're going to connect to our leather before we wrap the loop.
Allie says, I usually end up with a kink somewhere. I see that I have been doing ends like this incorrectly.
I don't know that you've been doing them incorrectly, but you know, next time you come in, show me what you've been doing and I might give you a little bit of a pointer. And so I just wrapped my loop and I will pinch in that little and now we're using one of our 2 larger beads. And again, just as before, we're going to make a little 90-degree angle. Also, you know, just one thing that I do, and you don't have to do it, it just makes me happy when all my loops line up. So as I bend my wire, I do it so that it's parallel to my first loop. And now I'm going to make my second loop. Cross it over. If it's not quite centered, we're just going to roll it a little bit, center it nicely. And since this is our connector, we are just going to put our chain and our handmade chain right into the loop and then proceed to coil.
Allie says, I like your method and how you tuck the wire so it keeps the leather or fiber closed.
Thank you so much, Allie. You know, it's kind of amazing how well it works because, of course, the leather is supple. So it really allows the wire to, I don't even know what's the word for it, to like really kind of bite into the leather, and it keeps it in place so very well. So this is how we connect. And I am now going to show you the finished necklace because really at this point, all you have to do is do exactly the same thing on the other side. But actually, before we finish with the necklace, let me also say that if you are adjusting the length, before you make that second loop, really just kind of ponder the length you want this necklace to be. There's no clasp on the necklace. There's no adjusting it afterwards, unless of course you cut out a piece of it and put a clasp on it, which you could. But the way I designed it is just so that it's very, very easy to wear. You just throw it right over your head and that's it. That's all you do. And so the way that I would probably play with it as you are trying to decide is you can always just use that extra little wire. I have my little teal wire from before. You can use that little extra wire and just kind of hold it, you know, just stand in front of the mirror and hold it like this. And you can always just adjust the little tail, see how it hangs. And once you find your happy place, then you just decide, okay, this is where I'm making my loop. So just play with it before you commit. So once you make that second loop, you connect the whole thing with that single bead or that framing bead. And where did I just put my finished? Okay, so here is my finished sample. And this is, so I'm not going to put it on, I'm just going to hold it up. Okay, maybe I'll put it on because I can't wave to you guys and put it on at the same time, or hold it up at the same time. Oh, and it actually really matches my jewelry. Yay! So, hey guys, what do you think? Is this fun? So, mine, I believe my finished piece is about
35 inches or so. And I use 27 inches of leather, but it also kind of depends on how you fold it over. So you have a few inches there to play with, so just make it your own. Make sure though that it goes over your head, because if you make it like 16 inches and then you need a clasp. Okay, so I am going to take it off so that we can work on the bracelet. I forgot for a second what we're working on now. So, but what do you think? Do you like the length? Could you see the entire length? I think you could, right? Was it short enough where you could see it?
Yes, it was short enough.
Oh, good, good. Tony nodded. I wasn't quite sure. Okay, so,
Joan says beautiful, thank you.
yay, thank you, Joan.
Katie says looks great with what you are wearing.
Thank you so much, Katie. Can you believe this just kind of happened? I actually did not plan it like that.
Connie and Fonda say looks great.
Yay, thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, so time to move on to the next one, right?
Carmen says beautiful.
Thank you, Carmen.
Teresa says beautiful. What gauge is the wire used for wrapping the loops?
Yeah, so let's review the wire once more. So the wrapped loops are pretty much my go-to. It's 22 gauge wire, and please make sure that you're buying half hard wire so that your loops hold up really nicely. And of course, if you're getting my kits, obviously you will get half hard 22 gauge wire in the kit. But if you are making your own, make sure you're getting 22 gauge half hard wire. And in general, whatever gauge you use for wrap loops, it's always a super good idea to go with half hard. And then of course, the 28 gauge wire is dead soft, and that is what you want to use for those coils on leather.
Allie says looks great.
Thank you so much, Ellie.
Trudy says fits nicely.
Yay, thanks, Trudy.
Yolanda says so very pretty.
Thank you so much, Yolanda. Okay, ladies, so we're now going to make a bracelet. Either you wear them together or you wear them separately. Either way, they're really complementary to one another. They can be a set or not a set.
Kim says so pretty. If we wanted it a bit shorter, could we add a clasp at one end of the leather?
Absolutely. In fact, so you could make it a bit shorter and it will still go over your head. Or you could make it a lot shorter. And if I made it a lot shorter, I guess, you could make the clasp so that it is at the end of like one of the ends. This would actually be kind of fun. But the other thing you could do is, let's say if you really want it short, like a choker length, the length that will not fit over your head, you could simply cut out a big chunk of leather, and then very much the same way, you could fold some of it over and create a loop, and then from that loop you can connect to any clasp you like.
Ellie says, is artistic wire dead soft or half hard?
Thank you, Ellie, for asking. Artistic wire is dead soft. So, I'm just going to backtrack a tiny bit and explain wire for anybody who is a little bit new to wire. So when you work with wire, there are really only two options. There's half hard and there's dead soft. When you are making loops like this, or maybe when you're wrapping a stone, but right now we're talking about making loops. So when you're making loops, you want your loops to hold up and not bend every time you bump your bracelet a little bit, right? So because of that, you always want half hard, because then they're going to hold their shape really nicely. But when you are wrapping something like this, right, you're coiling, You want a wire that's going to be super, super pliable, almost like thread, something that's super easy to wrap. And so for this, you want dead soft. So the reason I'm being so very specific about brands is because when you buy precious metal wire, like sterling or gold filled, it's always going to be labeled. So when, like for the store, when we buy the wire that's, again, gold filled or sterling, it's always sold to us as either dead soft or half hard. And we label it as well. We pass that on to you, right? But unfortunately, I don't know why this is the case. When you buy base metal wire, it is not almost ever labeled as dead soft or half hard. So how do we know? Well, we just kind of get to know the brands really intimately, and we commit to the brands that we know are going to be either very similar to dead soft or very similar to half hard. And I found those two brands that I really enjoy working with. And those two brands are Artistic Wire, which I use for dead soft, and Beadsmith, which I use for half hard.
Allie says, thank you for the explanation.
Oh, my pleasure, Ellie, and thank you so much for asking. I love it when people ask because sometimes I don't know what you don't know. So when you guys ask, it just makes me so happy because then we are all on the same page. Okay, ladies, so now we are going to make the bracelet. And as you can imagine, the bracelet is made in a very, very similar way to how we just made the necklace. So when you make the bracelet, you start out with the chain. And with the bracelet, of course, this is, a little bit more about sizing. In fact, it's a lot more than, I'm 5'3" and you might be 5'7", right? So in fact, it's somewhat precise how large or how small our wrist is. So generally, when we buy bracelets, we kind of want to know if our wrist is 6 inches, 7 inches, 6.5. So you do have some extra beads in this kit. So my bracelet, my sample, is, if I measure from the clasp to the end of the extender chain, it is 8 inches. So it can be worn by somebody who wears anywhere between 7 or 8 inch necklace, or bracelet rather. So between that little extender chain and also varying how many beads we put into our bracelet, we can really vary the length of the bracelet. So I'm just going to tell you, I used in the body of the bracelet, not including the 2 larger beads. So in the body of the bracelet, I used 9 beads. It comes with 11 6mm beads, so you can use, no, wait a minute, not 11, 12. However, one of them we're going to use as a little bauble like that. So you can make up to a 9-inch bracelet. But again, I'm just talking about the thought process about how do we adjust to our desired length. Okay, so once we have figured out just how long of a bracelet we want, and again, you know that mine can be worn by anybody between 7 and 8 inch wrist. So the bracelet I'm making right now is going to be exactly the same. So because of that, I'm going to line up these 2 chains and I'm going to cut off any excess chain. And so right here it looks like, and I'm just going to slip through that, and that's going to be my other earring. That little piece of extra chain. So now I have these two pieces of chain, one handmade, one commercially made, and they're right around the same size. If it's like one link larger or smaller, it just doesn't matter. And so now I'm going to, very much like before, I'm going to start making a wrapped loop. Told you guys this would be a lot of wrap loops, which are just so fun to make. And so again, we're going to start with a 90-degree angle, and I don't think I mentioned, but I usually start with about, for this type of project, because I'm using a slightly larger side of my bail making pliers, I start with about 1.25 inches. You can start with 1 inch, but you know, you're going to have a kind of a short piece of wire to work with. So I made my loop. Before I wrap my loop, I am going to put my 2 chains inside the loop, and then of course we're going to wrap the loop. And I like just those 2 little coils, you know, it makes it nice and neat looking. And you know what, I didn't get quite close enough. I'm going to get a little closer. And sometimes people ask me about how I manage to pinch that little end in so easily. Well, the key is in how close it is. So just cut it as close as you possibly can, as short as you can. And of course, the key to that is you always use the flat side of the cutter next to whatever it is that you're cutting, as opposed to like this. So you never want to do this, you always want to do that. And now we're going to start making the other loop, the remaining loop, and make a 90-degree angle. Use the larger side of the bail making pliers. Oh, and I just launched one of my beads. Oh well, it happens. I'll find it in a moment because I actually do need it in order to finish this this piece. Actually, Tony is offering to find it for me. So I'm just going to hold on to the camera and show you what I did. So as you can see, I just connected this clasp to my loop. And this is a swivel clasp. I'm a big fan of swivel clasps for any project that has multiple strands. And Tony found it, yay! Thank you, Tony. So, you know, he's really good at finding things. In our house, he's always the one who gets to find things. So, so as I was saying, the swivel clasp is a really awesome kind of a clasp for any type of project, whether it's a necklace or a bracelet that is multi-strand.
Allie says, love the bail making pliers.
Thank you so much, Allie. Yay. I don't know why I'm thanking you for liking bail making pliers. It's not like I invented them, but I'm glad you like them because it's such a good tool. It just makes our loops super even and nicely shaped. I love them too.
Kim K says, yay, Tony.
Yay. Thank you, Kim. Okay, guys, so we have our clasp on one side. And now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So, you know what, I'm going to, when I work on my own, I usually work with a longer piece of wire and it does not get in the way. But when you have a camera in front of you, sometimes it gets a little awkward, and then, you know, you send your beads flying because there's just not that much space between me and the camera. Okay, so now, before I connect the next and, the remaining and, I should say, I like to just hang or let my project just hang loose. And this is so that it kind of untwists itself. Because otherwise, sometimes as you put the chain down and it's just kind of laying there, I don't know, sometimes it just gets a little twisted. And it's good to just let gravity untangle it. And so I connected the two chains within the same loop, and we'll cut that little and off and pinch. And now we are ready to put that remaining bead on. This is the one that went flying. However, it's really not part of my directions. You know, you don't have to like throw your bead before you attach it, but you can. Okay, ladies, so we are making that last loop. Well, maybe not quite last, but almost the last loop. And before we wrap it, we're also going to attach the little chain. And this is our extender chain. This is a very important chain, at least for me. You know, I like using extender chains. I use them in a lot of my projects because sometimes when you give somebody a gift of jewelry and you're not quite sure about sizing, it's just something that makes our life so easy. You just attach that 1-inch chain and it gives you so much leeway. And even for myself, I like bracelets with a little chain because, you know, sometimes I like a little arm party that consists of multiple bracelets, and as you go up, you need a slightly larger size. And so if you like the full inch, this is 5 links, which makes it about a full inch. Great, you can keep that. If not, we can always cut off a couple of the links if you don't feel that the person you're making it for is going to need it. And then finally, I like to put a little bauble at the end of my bracelets, just because this looks naked to me. It just looks a little unfinished. So I like making a little wrapped loop component, just using a single bead. And we're going to put this at the end of the chain, and that is going to give us a nice finished look. And I don't know, I didn't show you, but these are the 3 beads I had left. And so I picked the Bermuda blue just because I really love the Bermuda blue. And so that's going to be my bauble. And so we're just going to hold on to the loop and finish wrapping.
Kim K says, I love this project. I can see lots of possibilities in different beads and wire colors.
Absolutely, Kim. You can do so much with this type of project. And literally, it's just 90% of the project is just wrapped loops. In fact, for the bracelets, pretty much 100% of the project. Okay, ladies, and that's it. Done. So we have our bauble. Again, we could have shortened the chain, and you have opportunities to size the bracelet as you create the bracelet, so as you're adding links, and also at the very end. So just wanted to show you that I do have those 2 beads left over. So if we were to add those 2 beads, that's going to add another inch to our bracelet, just in case if anybody's concerned about sizing. So that's about it. I believe we just covered the whole thing. So we made a bracelet and we made a necklace. And again, I'm just going to show you all 3 colorways that we have in the Etsy shop, and then I'll do a little preview of what's coming up tomorrow and next Thursday.
Fonda says, such a fun and pretty bracelet.
Thank you so much, Fonda. We need a little sparkle right about now, right? Right about like when it's about to get even colder. In fact, it's such a cold day today. Oh my gosh. It is cold, you guys, and we are about to get a lot of snow, probably on Monday. I think we're expecting a big storm on Monday. So, but where I'm going with this is, you know, especially when you have the long Wisconsin winters, it is really helpful to wear something sparkly once in a while, and I don't know, it's kind of like sunshine. It just makes you happy.
Kathy K says, sparkling for spring.
Yes, so these are kind of springy, right? But the blue is kind of wintry, but really these are year-round. I mean, any of these are year-round to me. Like, as you can see, I'm wearing similar colors to the pink today, and it's making me happy. So as much as I really also like drab. I like gemstones that are very earthy and those winter tones, but I really love color. So I love it all.
Karen says, another inspirational project. Thank you for sharing your time and talent.
Thank you so much, Karen. And thank you guys for being interested. I love that you are here and you are participating and commenting. It just makes me very happy that you are into this. And in fact, you know I haven't said this in a while, but if you have ideas for the Thursday videos, for the project videos, please do share your ideas with me. If there's something you want to explore, a technique, a type of project, please don't be shy. Don't hesitate. I love exploring new ways to use beads, new ways to use components. So please let me know.
Bobby says, oh, keep the snow down there.
Oh, thanks, Bobby.
Allie says, blue is spring rain.
Oh, yes, you're absolutely right. But it's also kind of snowy, you know?
Karen says, we're going to get our first big snow on Saturday. I'm stocked and ready.
Oh, nice. Are you stocked with beading projects? Are you getting ready to just kind of be, at home and cozy and have a cup of tea and bead or coffee or whatever it is? Maybe something a little more racy, maybe a glass of wine.
Katie says, I hope we get a lot of snow. I'm starved for it.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know what? Truth be told, I get excited for about the first 5-10 minutes of that fairy tale kind of landscape. And then I just wait for spring.
Connie says, thanks so much. Love the sparkles. So fun.
Thank you so much, Connie. Thank you.
Kim K says, we rarely get snow in coastal North Carolina, but it's exciting when it happens.
Oh, okay. Well, in that case, I'm excited for you. I hope you get some.
Fonda says, once again, you made it hard to pick a favorite colorway.
Oh, thank you, Fonda. Well, you know what? That's my cue to ask you. So what is your favorite?
Yolanda says, thank you. Always love your designs.
Thank you so much, Yolanda.
And Karen says, food, beads, and wood.
Food, beads, and wood. Okay, so you're a woodworker as well.
Or using a fireplace.
Or, yes. Oh, yes, that's what you stocked up on. Okay, that actually makes a little more sense. That sounds amazingly cozy.
Allison says, frost tomorrow night in Tucson.
Oh my. Yeah, I'm really hoping for no frost when we go to Tucson.
Make sure it's warm when we get down there, Allison.
Yes, Allison, please do. Do something, so that all the snow is done by the time we get there.
It's sunny every day.
Yes, yes, we're getting there the last week of January, and we want the warmest Tucson weather. We love going to Tucson this time of the year. And for anybody who doesn't know, the biggest gem and bead show in the world is in Tucson. And we go every year to buy for the store, to buy for these videos. And it's very exciting. So I'm sure you will be seeing some of the treasures from the trip as soon as we come back. Or actually not even as soon as we come back, but I usually do like one little video with a preview of some of the super exciting things that we find. And I don't even know what those things are going to be, so it'll be a surprise for all of us.
And we'll post pictures on our Facebook page of treasures we
Oh
find
yes,
too.
we always post pictures of our Tucson treasures, so definitely stay tuned.
Allie says blue, pink, then purple are all great.
Oh, thank you so much, Ellie.
And Kathy K says, I like crystals, pearls, and black accents in a bracelet. Classic looks.
Oh, nice. Good to know. I'll have to do that one of these days. Absolutely. I would love to do that.
Allison says, I will do my best, and sends a cactus.
Awesome. And again, thank you for the cactus. We love those giant saguaros when we go to Tucson. Oh my gosh, how stunning they are. And okay, so let's do a little preview for what is coming up. In fact, the event that I'm going to talk about first is coming up in about 13 hours from right now. So I hope you guys can join me for the Facebook shopping event. This is a live event. And it is tomorrow. So we're going to explore lots of eclectic things like brass stampings and copper components and freshwater pearls and gemstone strands and more. And this, of course, is going to be tomorrow, Friday, January 5th at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. And this is going to be on the Eclectica page. And the link to that is in the comments. And then next Thursday, this is the bracelet that I'm showing you guys. So next Thursday, we'll be making Gemstone Harmony bracelet. And this is going to be Thursday, January 11th at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time on my jewelry design page, which is where you guys are right now. So this is a little nod to Valentine's Day, of course, as it is coming up. It's going to be here very soon. And I wanted to design something that is both very Valentine Day-like, but also not. And this is just something that can be worn any time of the year, but has a little heart, you know, and I think I'm probably going to do another variation of this bracelet. So this is just like a fun little collection of gemstone beads with a very unique component. This is a Patricia Healy component, which some of you have been watching me on Fridays, the shopping events, and you've seen some of the Patricia Healy components. So this is actually one of them, so it makes it even that much more special.
Karen says, I will miss the sale in the morning. Have a PET scan. I will watch the replay.
Okay, Karen, well, good luck with your PET scan. And whenever you join us, or you can watch the replay, you know, people always ask me whether you can watch the replay. You know, I'm just going to move some things around. But yes, so you can always watch the replay and just send us an email order from that. A lot of people are not able to watch us during the live video, but as long as you watch within the next day or two, generally most things that I show in the live videos are still available. So you can always do that. And
Kathy K says, love the heart copper component.
thank you so much, Kathy.
Allie says, so cute.
Thanks, Allie.
Karen says, I love the eclectic design of this bracelet. Cannot wait for next Thursday.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Yes, Eclectic. That is me. That is my middle name.
Kim K says, thanks so much for sharing all the sparkles. See you in the morning.
Yay. Thank you so much, Kim. Okay, ladies, I will see you in the morning. In the meantime, have a wonderful and creative evening and enjoy.